All right, Mark Deering here from the Adventure Channel. I got Joe Lampen next to me, and many of you know his name, but I thought I'd catch up with him. We got a few topics we're going to go over today. First off, when you got somebody like him sitting next to you, you got to ask him race questions, all this training questions. He's the GOAT. He's awesome. You gotta hear something.
Not the GOAT yet, or ever.
He is fast. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but then stay around because we're also going to talk about MEMBA, everything they've been doing lately. You've seen the Global Fat Bike Ride just happened, Mosquito Creek, all these fun trails. There's a new trail that we're going to talk about, so stick around. We're going to talk about that a little bit and just kind of do a little shooting the breeze here. So let's just jump right into it. All right, Joe, so I've known you for a while. I started mountain biking about 12 years ago. How long have you been mountain biking?
So my first Iceman was 2010.
Okay.
And that would have been the tail end of my first year of mountain biking.
So similar. So you've progressed much faster than I have.
Well, I've definitely taken a liking to it. So I've worked pretty hard, and I think what's interesting over time, I never got into it really thinking that was going to be a result or that I'd get into it that heavy, but I've just found it to be a lot of fun and found a lot of passion in it. So
yeah. So same, and like I say, Iceman was my first race, so that was kind of where it built my passion for racing and like, oh, this is awesome, and I got to get a little bit better for next year. And you were at the time way up there at Iceman in my class, the Clydesdale class at the time, and that would have been however many years ago that was. How many? Do a little history on Iceman finishes.
Yeah, so I don't know if we've got time, but I'm gonna kind of take a step back even a little bit further because I think there's kind of an interesting story there. I got into cycling because I was a pretty big guy and had kids and wanted to be active with them.
Sure.
And I'd seen my dad get into biking, and I was impressed with how that had really allowed him to be just more energetic and lively, and thought, maybe there's something there that I could check out. And so bought a road bike and spent a couple of years on a road bike. Again, with no real aspirations or intentions, just wanted to be healthier. In 2010, like we talked about, I got a mountain bike. And I've got this funny thing in my head. I show up at Iceman, and I rode the bike, quite a bit that year, and showed up at the starting line, and I thought to myself, I can win this class.
I remember you saying that.
I can win this class. And it's just been some sort of goofy thing in my head, like from the time I started that first race.
Sure.
Thinking I can win.
Sure.
And it has come to bite me sometimes.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily the easiest thing to live with all the time, but it does drive my competitive spirit. So that's some of what has driven me to improve and get faster. 2010 was not a great year. I finished mid-pack, 3 hours and 4 minutes.
Okay.
And I had set a goal for 2.5 hours.
I beat you my first year.
And
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to me was that I didn't meet my goal.
Sure.
I like I said, I started the race thinking I can win this, but I had in my brain,
right,
in my heart, that's what I wanted. In my brain, I was
yes.
You can't.
Right.
You didn't put the time in.
Yes.
But it drove me the following year to spend more time on the bike.
Sure.
Totally unstructured, but just spending more time with it. And the following year, I came back and took an hour off my time and finished 4th or 5th overall.
Nice.
In
1 year.
1 year.
I did not realize you did it that fast.
Yep.
Okay.
And
what did that year look like, if you don't mind me asking? We all know the difference, but let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that in 2010, I was riding probably every other Wednesday night, maybe once or twice on the weekend. And in 2011, then I became more consistent with it. And for me, it was a little bit easier because I call it luck of the draw, or just natural, natural draw. I found myself riding with a group of riders that were really fast.
Yeah, you guys is it Wednesday crowd?
Yeah. And so I had guys to look up to.
Sure.
And I had guys to chase.
Sure.
And constantly. And it was about the time that they were starting to really move up. I think in 2011, a couple of them were still racing sport class in the local races. A couple of them had bumped up into the expert class. But they had always led, and they were continuing to push. And in a really good and healthy way.
Absolutely.
These guys have become really close friends over that time. I had not met them before. It wasn't a group of friends that I started riding with together. It was a group of friends. I actually met one of them in my MBA program when I was going through that. So combine a competitive spirit with the right group of riders, and it didn't take much, for me to add more time in 2011 and get driven to see that.
Sure.
And frankly, I knew I had taken an hour off my time. I missed the podium because I didn't really think that I was, podium worthy.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden my dad, who's been with me, he's actually it's kind of a cool story. He's come with me on every Iceman I've been at too.
Okay. I did not know that the beginning part where you mentioned, I didn't know that there was a generational thing there. That's cool.
Yep. And he's been, obviously super supportive and loves coming up, and he was at Iceman again this year and loves it. But he heard my name being called, and he's like, Joe, and I'm like, what? Of course, we're 3 beers deep in the afternoon.
Already celebrating, right?
And so I got my first check, it was the fourth or 5th place or something like that in Clydesdale. And so I caught the bug. And from there, again, I didn't really have a structure until probably 2018. I wasn't structured with a coach or anything like that.
Sure.
But even in the Clydesdale class, you've seen the progression of all of the riders in that class. It just continued to get faster and faster.
Some of my buddies, I know you're watching, tease me about hanging out in that class. I'm like, it's not a slow class.
No. And 6'3", pretty big boned, even being pretty slim in 2019, I was still over 200 pounds. So even this year, still pretty close to 200 pounds.
Sure.
I still have a little bit of a disadvantage, But yeah, you can really rip, if you put your heart to it. So
that's like you say, you've been inspiring. That's going back how long we've been doing this and like watching the Strava. I used to come back from a race and mud, sweat, and beers or peak to peak. If I took 6th or 7th or a couple times I took 4th, and I'm like, okay, who are these guys that are beating me? And then you look them up on Strava, you see how much they're riding, how much they're climbing.
Yeah.
And same thing.
Probably another piece that I missed in 2011 and 12. And this, I'd like to bring this up because this is also a big factor. There's a lot of factors that go into a lot of riders that, end up getting better. One of these was at the time, kind of an odd one. My employer had one of the first employers that had a wellness plan and a wellness program. And through that program, they came in with a third-party provider and did blood work. Okay. And through that process, I realized that I had high cholesterol.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when I went to my doctor to talk about that, he said, I was right at the cusp. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I could put you on a cholesterol medication. That would help. He said, but you're right on this cusp, and you're probably right at this weight cusp. Mm-hmm. If you lost a couple of pounds, you could probably get underneath it. So that was added momentum, added motivation that summer to ride a little bit more. And I would say that's probably about the time that our diets started shifting. Again, our kids started eating real foods. Okay. And so we became more cognizant of the things that we were giving them. So we're not full organic, but we've gone to like your Whole Foods type of stuff. We shop at Aldi, so I'm not talking about going to Whole Foods, the grocery store, but just stuff that you can recognize.
Yeah, eating real food. Food. My wife spoils us with real food, and being a bachelor pre my wife, was the fast food, the pizzas, being in real estate, my front seat was full of, fast food bags and just getting by because I had to get to the next appointment and whatnot. And so I didn't even know food until I met her. And Now, I mean, I eat not so clean, but I eat pretty clean because that's what she cooks and makes, and it makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference.
And I think it's an age thing too. Once we get up there, I'm getting in the upper 40s. It makes a big difference in how you feel too. I try going back to spoil myself with that pizza or something, and I don't even feel good afterwards. That's part of the age.
I'm in Thanksgiving hangover right now. After I worked with my sister-in-law, she's a nutrition coach this year, and really focused in on fueling my workouts and fueling my recovery. And you can do it with, drink mixes and that kind of stuff. I chose to do it with real foods.
Okay. On the bike?
So real foods, yeah. I mean, on the bike, I would still use drink mixes and goos and that kind of stuff. But like post-ride,
Gotcha.
I didn't drink a powdered, protein shake. I'd bring a couple of chicken breasts with me.
Nice.
I went through a ton of chicken this year.
Okay.
But, yeah,
Sweet
I get
potatoes,
done.
Full sweet potatoes, is that a thing?
Big sweet potato guy.
Gotcha.
So I got to get my I do basmati rice.
Okay.
So a lot of my carbohydrates come from rice.
Okay.
But yeah, after Iceman, I was like, okay, I just need a break because there's a lot of work too, right? And there's a lot of pressure to keep up with it. And it's not easy. So even for somebody that's as competitive as I am, that's still a hard thing to keep up with. So I'm like, I just need a break. And I have felt like crap lately. Yeah. Because I've been eating like crap.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not doing it to your level, but the level that I'm doing it at, it's like, and then you step on the scale and you're like, you look at, and COVID and everything else that was crazy for a couple of years there. And I said, you know what? It's not even the small satisfaction that I think I need of that pizza, and that I don't like pop, but I try to have it to see if I'm going to like it with the pizza. And, I just find that afterwards I feel like crap anyway. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get back to.
The beer carbs, that's hard to give up.
Yeah, I don't mind those. you gotta feel your workouts.
Yes. So you have progressed, all the way up. Let's talk, if you don't mind, to put you on the spot a little bit. What was your time this year?
140 something.
That's pretty fast. That's pretty fast.
Yeah. It's and I don't want to dismiss the feeling of like accomplishment that was too.
Yeah. Amazing.
I think you had the winner of Iceman on, and that was a great interview.
Thank you.
In talking with or in listening to them talk about it, and they were obviously very excited about winning too. And I just don't think that we spent a lot of time about talking about that feeling of just like doing your best. I mean, for them it was winning or being up at that level, but still riding in the morning and racing really well and feeling like I had a good ride. Like it was more about, I felt like I did an incredible job for what I can do. Exactly. And that's to me the most important thing.
I agree. Cycling, I think it's a really cool, unique thing that cycling is personal best. I think like yes, there's the group that gets to fight for the pro podium, and whatnot. But then, then there's the age groups, and then there's the different divisions and whatnot. But even the ones that aren't fighting for the age groups, and like you said, your first one and my first one, and then cutting time off, and then so it's almost like when you're at a race like that, especially Iceman, because everybody's like, "How'd you do?" And it's really like, I beat last year's time. I did better than I thought. I had 10 minutes faster than I thought, and that's what it's all about. The person doing it in 3 hours is excited as the person doing it in 2 hours.
Totally.
And it's like not very common. You can find other sports like that.
That first year, the 2011 year, that first year that I ended up on that podium, I had a very similar feeling that I did this year.
Nice.
Because I knew at that year that I had put so much work into it and felt like I'd taken an hour of time off, and I was like, that is the best I could do. That is incredible.
Yes.
So it is all about that.
When everything comes together, the training and the eating and the everything, and like you say, it's sometimes hard to hold on to it all the way for that long of time throughout a season, depending on when your A races are or whatnot. But yeah, that's what keeps me coming back, and keeps me motivated. And yeah, I gotta get on the darn trainer this winter. Yeah, I'll go out in the freezing cold, and why do you do that? I don't know, but I love it.
That's just it. Like I think for somebody like me who's had a health journey along with this process, it wouldn't have lasted if it wasn't fun.
Right, exactly.
And so I believe anyway that, if you're getting into something because it's like a health choice, like for it to truly be lasting, you just gotta enjoy it. It has to be fun, and it has to be fun at a level that you enjoy it.
Exactly. Right when in that time frame when I was getting started, I was hitting the gym, just doing elliptical trainers and treadmills and all that, trying to lose weight, realizing that I was at my peak or a peak. And that's when I found mountain biking. I'm like, wait a minute, I can have fun while losing weight? That's when everything clicked for me, just like you're saying, and then you realize that if you're going to keep up with your buddies, you got to even lose a little more weight. That little motivation. And like that group you're talking about on Wednesday, I know who you're talking about, and that's an awesome group. I've a couple times thought I was going to cruise down there. I'm like, why? I'll see them in the parking lot.
It's a fun group. It does oftentimes end up in a hot pace. But as best we can, we try and invite as many people out as possible. And try and have as many people there at all kinds of different levels.
Exactly.
Because it is about the parking lot at the end of it.
It is the start and the end, and the and everybody gets what they want in between. That's what we try doing with our group rides. If I was to say we had a perfect group ride, it would be when just enough showed up. We call it the party pace or the talk pace. The mid-packers who are chasing the front guys, and then the front guys. It's awesome when you have just the right amount for each level. And you go back to the parking lot, and the beers just taste that much better when everybody got what they wanted. So that's what we try to create on our Thursdays. So I know exactly what you're saying. So let's jump to that couple next topics. I'm gonna leave the fun one for last about the new trail coming up. But let's talk about MEMBA in general. So I heard a couple things earlier when we started talking about. I don't know if it was just the marketing you guys have done in the last 5 years, or I think the Mosquito Creek, different things. You guys are really doing an awesome job with the community, and it's totally visible to me. I don't think it's just me that lives in this area, but whatever you're doing is working. Like you got a bunch of new volunteers or new board or something's going.
I mean, you'll get this phrase, activity breeds activity.
Sure.
And a little bit of history on Michigan's Edge. We were... Now, this is the story that I've been told. So I wasn't here in 2012, like a part of the organization. But in 2012, West Michigan Mountain Bike Association was dealing with a significant number of new trail opportunities and trying to sort out how to manage all of them. At the time, Owassapee had just been brought back online. It had been an earlier mountain bike trail, but then been closed for some time. A gentleman by the name of Randy Knapp was instrumental in getting that back open. Upper Mac was a part of the conversation. I think Luton and Merrill were a part of the conversation, and there were some other projects that were going on. And there was a lot of energy and ambition around really bringing mountain biking to the forefront in the West Michigan community. And from what I understand, there was a realization that it just was too big of an area for one organization to try and manage. And
for the West Michigan Mountain Bike Association, they at one point were doing all of this and realized it was too big.
Yep.
Okay.
And so Michigan's Edge Mountain Bike Association was formed to kind of cover the lakeshore from Allegan to Oceana County.
Okay.
And when I say cover, I would describe it as if there's opportunities, we wanted to help, but we by no means, like, that was not ownership.
Sure.
We didn't have to, it's not like, well, that's our territory.
Right. It's where you can help.
That's where, we wanted to kind of put borders around how far we would, be available to help. I got involved by showing up at a meeting at Upper Mac in probably 2015-ish, 16, something like that.
Right.
Just out of curiosity.
Right when I told you it started to go like this.
No, yeah, well, no, it's not the case. It's not. I think I say that only because I feel like that is how it has grown. Okay. Is people have expressed interest and they've shown up for things.
Sure.
And they've then kind of said, I can do this and I can step in. And every time we've had somebody that's come in and said, hey, I think I can help or I would be interested in this, there's always something for them to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the more, I don't know why it took me so long to know more about the trail days and all that. I mean, I didn't know a ton about them 5 years ago, not because I didn't want to. I guess I just wasn't aware of everything. But once you start getting involved in trail days, once you start realizing that it's just a big giant volunteer network, and plugging in, and it's our trails, and if we don't take care of them or we don't, so I know what you're saying. It's a really cool thing and rewarding to be a part of, and then you realize, if and there might be people watching this that don't realize it is just a big, large volunteer thing.
The way I describe it, I'm using kind of buzzwords from these days in technology, but it's a distributed network of doers.
Okay, sure.
And so you've got people all over the place that have a vested interest in making sure that their trails are both built and maintained. And really, I look at the work of the organization as just being a facilitator and an organizer and a communicator. And that is where I think we've gotten a lot better over the last 3 or 4 years, and we've had to because of Mosquito Creek. So
Mosquito Creek's awesome.
Yeah, when that started, really, coming to fruition, we had a couple of people again that just kind of stepped up and said, we really want this to happen here, and so we're willing to put the work into making sure this is happen.
Sure.
And started figuring out it's just like a business. If you want to build recognition or activity for this thing, you've got to start communicating, start promoting, and you've got to start fundraising and talking about and start an Instagram account.
Yeah. Everybody's on Instagram checking out if you want to get the news out that there's a new jump section at Mosquito Creek, just put it on Instagram and
I think there was a big aha moment with that. At least further was for me. We need to be doing more about telling our story about what's going on. There's a lot of work that's being done, but we're not talking about, Jeff and Brian, the amount of work that they put into Upper Mac and all the work that they're putting into Ridge Point Church Trail and all the background, conversations that they're having about like here.
We got a little visitor coming in and out, wherever she is. But what you're saying, like that's where we want to help out. Like the Adventure Channel, I've got a passion for this, and like the more I hear these stories and the more I hear the background and the more I hear where the needs are and whatever, and then helping get the exposure out there. I don't think people, some of them don't realize how much work is done in the background. Some don't realize that, or some would help in a heartbeat if they knew where to plug into, and they don't understand the opportunity and how well our community could grow even more just with a little bit more help or a little bit, so that's what this is all about.
Yep. Well, and that's what I've loved about this, that you've started this. It does tell a lot of these stories, and it really kind of brings attention to the sport, but also the cool things that are happening.
Absolutely.
And we need people like you to be able to tell these stories. So
I love it. I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, because frankly, there's nothing special about me, and it's just I'm just showing up and telling you what I know.
Yeah, no, and there's it's the mountain bike community. We all have so much in common. How many parking lots have you been in where you could talk for hours just with the person parked next to you? And
I can't count on two hands how many times I've done it.
Right.
Much less how many can you?
Yes, yeah. It's an awesome community. There's so many stories out there. There's so many things that's getting worked on that we need to hear about and want to hear about, so that's kind of my passion. As I want to put a spotlight out there on different spots, and so everybody kind of knows what's going on. And so with that being said, I want to talk quickly about Mosquito Creek, because I'm really liking that trail. I loved the Saints Loop. I love what they just did with little jump lines and made that one a going out section pretty sweet. What is that? Is that trail? I mean, it could be. It's awesome as it is, but is it kind of at that complete stage for now? I mean, there's been a ton of work there.
Yep. So that trail took about 5 years. If I go back to when I started getting involved, and there was just the ideation phase of that trail. The fundraising took the most work, frankly, because that trail was professionally built.
Sure.
Once we had the funds, we could just tell the builder to come up and build and then write the check.
Sure.
It is complete. There were some things that Alex wanted to do, the jump lines and some of those things that he thought were, kind of big additions that weren't a part of the original plan. And we had still some remaining funds that we could do, partially because we had some very generous donors that helped out with materials, for example. We had originally budgeted for some bridges, and there was materials. We bought some of the materials, but then we also had a lot of volunteer hours that built it.
Okay.
So that saved us a ton of money, and it also allowed us to then redeploy those funds into some of the jump lines, some of the other trail work.
Cool.
But for the most part, that trail is complete. I can maybe tease that there's ongoing conversations.
Okay.
Nothing concrete yet, but there's a ton of property there.
Okay.
Not all of it's currently owned by Muskegon, but there's some that might be. So,
Okay. That ridge along. Oh my gosh, that. I think it was the turkey burner. Where my wife always teases me. She's like, "Do you ever look left and right?" I'm like. Sometimes, and I have to do that more. I do have to recover ride more. And so we were riding, and I was looking around and just in awe. I'm almost crashing because I am looking around. There's so much to look at out there. That is a cool. You don't even feel like you're in, our area.
Yeah.
It's
truly unique. It's truly unique. But I probably should also say that if anything additional were to happen, that's probably quite a few years out.
Okay.
So for the time being, that's where that's at.
That's an awesome trail.
I can tell you, with that trail having Class 1 e-bike acceptance.
Sure.
I actually was the one that went into the Muskegon County Board and had that approved, and heard from them firsthand how impressed they were with the trail and how valuable it was to the community.
Okay.
And so for me, that's just validation that like what we're putting time into has a lot of great community value.
Sure.
And that just is like a good feeling, right? You're building an asset for the community that's going to be available theoretically for many years to come, as long as it's maintained. And it's kind of a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. Like even these Bass River and these different trails that have been around forever, state game area. Sorry. She likes to steal some attention once in a while. That is so weird. She is not a friendly, she's not a jump on a stranger's lap cat at all. My wife is going to laugh at that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's good.
But, the history, the history of the trails, like the state game area, on these, Yankee, you might know the history on it. I don't. That'd be kind of cool, to put together some different, this is how Yankee was formed, and, just to know. I'm kind of turned into one of those, history buffs to kind of, especially the sport that we're passionate about. But so you said e-bike, and I didn't even think of that and wasn't going to bring it up as the topic. But my wife has an e-bike now, and that she loves the fact that she can ride it at Mosquito. It is a thing I know that's had a weird thing throughout the community on e-bikes. Should they be allowed? Should they not? I can say from a husband's standpoint who might ride 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and that wife who wants to go out once every couple weeks, it's a great tool. She's not doing 5 miles to my 15 or 20. She's pushing me, and not doing anything different to the trail, and so, like I say, do you have a take on the e-bike thing?
I did, and a number of us on the board did quite a bit of research on it when we had been asked whether or not we would advocate for that. And there have been a few studies done. MEMBA did one, and they're of course in favor of Class 1. So clarification, there's 3 classes. The class 1 is
Pedal assist.
With a 20-mile-an-hour cap. And their findings, they had done a trail study from a impact study on the trail itself that didn't show significantly different impact on a trail.
Sure.
So that was, I think, really helpful in helping us become closer to being, advocate for it. Secondly, there was the other complaint or the other debate that I've heard is, well, it's just for people that really don't want to pedal.
Sure.
And 2 things. One, there was a study that was done on riders who went out using a regular mountain bike and then went out using an e-bike, and they measured their heart rates. And yes, their times were faster, but they put the amount of effort into it. I mean, it was within 5% of the effort.
Sure.
The anecdotal thing was, and it's probably similar to your experience, I was at Mosquito Creek before this was actually allowed, and I remember seeing a family go out into the trail together.
Okay.
And in my head, it was like, oh yeah, that's what those are for.
Sure. Yes.
It allows family
Yes.
to go out together and enjoy this sport.
Yep.
Where, we've talked about this, showing up on a Wednesday night ride.
Right.
That may, not everybody's going to fit in on some of these paces, right?
I just had a funny thought. You should get one of Cross Country's Evos or whatever, and go to your Wednesday ride.
I don't think those guys would be happy about that. They wouldn't be happy about that. No, I don't know that I'd go much faster either.
Right.
With the
Yes, you
power
would.
cutting out at 20, but
Oh, that's true, because you're usually
probably the one big thing yet still is whether or not somebody is going to be going too fast for their ability level.
Sure.
And you do have that risk.
Sure.
Time will tell whether or not that ends up becoming a significant issue. I've not heard that that's been an issue yet, any more than any normal person breaking a collarbone on their fat bike out at Yankee Springs.
Right. And like you say, and we don't have to talk much more about this. It came up, so I thought we'd talk about a second about it. But they're not cheap. So I mean, the person who's buying one is a ex mountain biker, ex dirt biker, or has something limitation, a wife or a husband, whatever that. They're not just, hey, I'm thinking about getting into mountain biking. I'm gonna go buy the $7,000 pedal assist bike, and they can't even pedal assist it to where it'd be dangerous. I mean, that's my opinion, but I respect. I think the big thing is when I was maybe 5 years ago, I might have been on a little bit different side of it, not fully understanding. But the more I understand, then it's like it's not that big a deal, really, the difference. But,
and the bikes are supposed to be very clearly marked what class they are.
Sure.
So one of the other questions was, well, how do you know if it's a class 1 or a class 2?
Sure.
Number 1, it has a throttle if it's a class 2.
And I haven't even seen any of those around, really.
No.
Who makes them?
Because it'll allow the bike, it'll propel the bike without having to pedal the bike.
Sure.
Right. And that's one of the steps.
Sure.
But no, I haven't seen any bikes that aren't kind of the class 1s out and about. But the other thing that kind of hit me was both the state of Michigan, they approved it for all of their paths, multi-use paths. So it's legal in Michigan to ride a e-bike on any of West Michigan here. We've got all these bike paths and all that kind of stuff, bike routes and that kind of stuff. And then I forget what the federal agency was, but it was essentially the Federal Agency for Land Management.
Okay.
Also came out with kind of ruling on allowing for e-bike class 1s in certain areas. So I still think it's appropriate to consider all of the things about the trail before just simply adopting it.
Sure.
I don't know that Bass River would be a great place for it.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's so tight and technical.
Yeah. You could get yourself in but yeah, it's a good point. Very good point.
You just have to think through it before you do it.
Right.
And maybe not even a bad idea to kind of test it out. But Mosquito Creek, not Mosquito Creek, Mosquito Creek. it felt like that was a good fit for it.
Oh yeah, that's a nice, fast, open.
It's open trail.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that totally. But yeah, not to get sidetracked there. But I thought, yeah, it might be a decent topic. So let's talk about more trail potentially on the west side of Grand Rapids for us West Siders who always go to Rockford. What's going on in Jamestown?
We call it the center of the donut.
Center of the donut. Okay.
From a trail system standpoint,
I gotcha.
There's trails along the lakeshore. There's trails, north of Grand Rapids, south of Grand Rapids, east of Grand Rapids.
Okay.
The Jamestown Township, Hudsonville area doesn't have anything.
Nope.
And we've got another, it's kind of just interesting how this kind of stuff works. An interested individual becomes aware of a parcel of property that is kind of interesting, kind of does some poking around and thinks that there's a really good idea. Potentially we could put a mountain bike trail here. So just south of 196 and east of the 32nd Street exit, the Hudsonville exit.
Is Harley still over there? Like the
Harley,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
You literally go by the Harley
Okay.
development dealership there. There is an industrial park on the west side of this property. And on the east side, there is residential development.
Sure.
And in between is an Ottawa County drain property, and there's a dam.
Okay.
And that dam was built to protect the highway. So water flows actually in that specific spot. It flows to the northeast, which would then go underneath the highway before then it would travel out to Lake Michigan.
Okay.
So the drain flows that way. So they put a dam in there to make sure that if we had, flood events, that it would protect the highway from having, being washed out.
Okay.
And then underneath the highway, there's huge culverts and that kind of stuff.
All right.
So we started having conversations. That parcel immediately looked to be owned by Ottawa County through the Ottawa County Drain Commission and Jamestown Township.
Okay.
And there's a total of about 160 acres.
Oh, wow.
And so in comparison, Upper Mac is built on about 80 acres.
Wow. Okay. So that puts it into perspective.
Yep. And we just like walked it, and we're like, this is so cool. We gotta try.
Would you, since I've never walked it, what would you compare it to? Is there any comparisons in West Michigan, like the terrain?
Yeah, I would call it pretty similar to the ridgeline it's probably a mixture between Upper Mac and Mosquito Creek.
Nice. Really nice.
There is a pretty deep ravine.
Okay.
There's as we get into it, there's been a couple of things that we've kind of found with that dam being there that are going to restrict us from going all the way down into the ravine too deep.
Okay.
Every single time we've ever walked back there, it was like this beautiful little creek line that was just sandy bottom, and the sides were just beautiful. And we're like, man, you come all the way down here, and then come all the way back up.
Right.
And we've been told that the Ottawa County Drain Commissioner in Ottawa County is one of the most friendliest and helpful drain commissioners for these types of projects.
Nice.
Exists in the country.
Okay.
And has been supportive and expressing cooperation with getting this done. And he came out and took a look at the lines that we were starting to draw, and he was like, "You realize that this dam actually has water in it sometimes, right?"
Oh.
And we're like, "No, we've never seen that." And he's like, "Yeah, you see that little thing that extends out over the dam? I've seen water all the way up to a foot below it."
Okay.
So he's like, "I would probably use that line as your baseline."
Back to the drawing board a little bit.
Back to the drawing board a little bit. But it still leaves number one, it still leaves a very scenic ravine to ride through, but still leaves enough elevation change to build something that is both fun and challenging.
Nice.
So we started a conversation. Jamestown Township was very supportive. All of our most of our projects, when we approach them, one of the attributes that we sell is if it's going to be volunteer built, like we're building at Beechwood, which we can talk about that too.
Yes.
That is volunteer time. And we get people out there that will mark the trail, that have built trail before. They know the rules of how you build it.
Yep.
You know, kind of what then ends up riding nice, how to do it in that, you know,
Right.
a way that's fun. And then it's just man hours. The other way is to do it the way that we're thinking about with Jamestown, is having it professionally designed and professionally built.
Sure.
You know, the funny thing is I've been doing a little bit of comparison between those two projects, and whether you've put a value on that volunteer time or you pay somebody, that cost is about the same.
Meaning, like,
If you were to put an hourly wage on the number of hours that it takes from a
I
volunteer
see what you're saying.
standpoint to build it versus hiring it out,
it's about the
It's
same.
about the same.
If you had, I gotcha. So if
you
you had
paid
the
it.
volunteers, yeah, okay,
now the professionally built is going to have a different look and feel to it.
sure.
But
Speed and time.
speed and time,
yeah.
you're going to get it built quicker too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which we'll be a fan of if we.
We just need a check right
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that we also say is we'll help fundraise. We will take on the responsibility of fundraising for this, which
Sure.
is very appealing, obviously, as you can imagine for a municipality.
Right,
if
right.
we don't have to come up with the funds out of our budget.
Sure.
You know, and as I've been comparing some of these costs, I mean, when we did Mosquito Creek, it was $360,000 was our budget, and it's like, man, that's really expensive. But then you looked at like other park projects,
Oh yeah.
and that's
Millions, right?
and that's really relatively inexpensive.
Sure. Like any of these paved paths they're putting in, Millennium Park. I mean, all these parks. I mean, the money. I've heard some numbers thrown around like that. There's a paved path that they're trying to connect Grand Rapids to Spring Lake, or and that's going through my dad's front yard, and so I got connected, or I got to talk directly to the planners, and they showed me what they want. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes. They have to meet me twice, show me the plan, what they're thinking about, negotiate with me because it's a rental of mine, and I'm like, if you throw in, to re-gravel this, but it's So I got a little taste of trail building from a pavement standpoint, how much, they've been working on that for years, and it might be a couple more years before that's done.
Yeah.
Same thing with,
We've been working on Jamestown for a couple of years.
See?
We are really close. In fact, there should be more information. We're going to really hit the fundraising hard here in the next month or so. We had decided to have MEMBA, International
talk
Mountain
about
Bike
that a little bit,
Association,
yeah.
come out and design it. The experience that we had at Mosquito Creek was a design build. So we had a builder come in. They had
the
somebody
trail
design
builder
it.
themselves
We
designed it, or
we coordinated everything with the trail builder.
okay.
And they said, well, we can do the whole thing. We'll both design it and build it.
Okay.
And they had a designer that they worked with that they really liked, that
Okay.
knew how they built trail and came in and designed it. And so it was like all one package. So we had a budget really pretty early on. With this one, what we wanted to do was try it a little bit different. We wanted to go with, and we had interviewed IMBA, International Mountain Bike Association, to just understand what their capabilities were. They obviously do a lot of work with helping chapters fundraise for projects. In fact, we've had 2 dig-in campaigns with them now.
Okay.
And decided that we wanted to have an independent or a kind of a third party design it, and design it in a way that was sustainable.
You'd think
Mosquito Creek was done well, but there were still some things that maybe we didn't like as much.
Okay.
And so we thought if we had IMBA, who's kind of like
National,
the standard,
Yeah. That's like,
design it,
Right.
then we could take that. And after talking with them, they said what we do is we bring it to a point where you can provide it to a trail builder, and they should know every foot of the trail what they have to, like what's expected of them.
okay.
And all then they have to do is put a quote to it.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we had some conversations with potential donors early on. We've had a number of people that have donated to it. We've raised, I don't know if it's over 40 grand now.
Okay.
Jamestown Township actually kicked in the first 15 so we could get
Nice.
IMBA to come and design it.
Nice.
And some of the conversations we had were, okay, when you have the full budget, come back to us. So we've been kind of waiting for that report to then go out and, get the bids,
Sure.
and then to go out. Well, the funny thing is now we're hearing from the builders, are you fully funded?
So you can't win.
Yeah. So we're deciding we've got enough information. MEMBA, obviously, they're designing things all over the United States. They're seeing bids come in all the time. They actually have their own trail crew that they'll build stuff with. They've got a pretty good bead on the market for what trail builders are bidding right now, and they gave us kind of a pretty tight window of where that is.
Okay.
And so we're going to go out with that number. And now the other thing is probably one of the biggest drivers of it is how much trail can you build there.
Sure.
So we've got a plan that we can get.
Is there any rumors of that? Like how many miles we're talking?
I'll share it.
Okay.
We have a design that can be built in phases, similar to Mosquito Creek.
Okay.
There's some advantages to building it all up front.
Okay.
Number one, we can get a trail crew here that they'd be able to commit to a big window.
Okay.
It's a little easier getting a trail crew here. But there's 6 to 7 miles initially, with a potential skills park that could add another mile and a half.
Ah, nice.
So I think we could get up to, I think the total is about 8 miles of trail that we can get out there.
Nice, with the little skills area.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because there's a flat land, there's kind of a flat area up on the south side of the property that has, that's kind of wet.
Okay.
And one of the ideas of the MEMBA gentleman that came out and actually did the design work, he was out for a couple of weeks actually walking the property, getting familiar with it and flagging, and so it's flagged and everything out there, and GPS'd, so he's got all the routes. He's like, I've seen property like this before. It looks like it'd be very challenging to build anything, but with the right materials, you could actually build a really cool pump track or skills.
Nice, nice. We've been to Bentonville once, Brevard. We're going back to Bentonville this year, and Bentonville has every corner you turn. There is pump tracks and different. Have you been down there yet?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, you got to go down to Bentonville, and Walmart. The Walmart money has just turned that whole area into trails after trails after trails. And so what I bring that up for is that would be so cool even if it's like a smaller version of. I think as we leave the state and then come back, I love when we go to like Mosquito Creek with that new jump line and the different things, and it's like, hey, there's something that I can practice on, so when I go out of state, I'm not such a rookie on some of the stuff.
Well, I mean, trail variety is such an important thing.
Fun for everybody, but enough challenge. It's got to be tough.
And that was one of the factors that went into Alex deciding we wanted to do this jump line at Mosquito Creek. We've heard it too. If you've been following some of the Facebook, like the West Michigan Trail Conditions pages, West Michigan Mountain Bikers, it's not a loud roar yet, but there's enough dialogue happening around some different types of trail systems. Okay. And you got a group that's building some really interesting stuff out of the ski area. Jonesburg ski area, right? So you've got some passionate people that are building that kind of stuff. So I think what we find interesting out of this trail and what we put into what we had MEMBA try to do when they were building this was think about how we could put like an A line and a B line in.
Nice.
So you could have maybe a jump line built in, but then also the flow line that would get you around. I don't like to get my tires off the ground.
Right. I think I like to, but then I do.
Yeah, I'm slowly getting more comfortable with it, but I mean, they just don't pedal when you're not on the ground.
It is a weird feeling when you get 200 pounds up in the air. But
a skills park that's again another feature, something that's different.
Yep.
And we're looking at doing some things along those lines in other parts of West Michigan too. We don't have a lot of the elevation that a lot of other areas have, and the elevation that we do have tends to be on dune. So it's not really good sustainable property to build trail on anyway. So we're trying to be as creative with what we've got.
This just popped in my head too. And back to the Bentonville thing is the ages of the kids that. If you do have these little pump tracks, these little practice to go down the log like this, and then it goes teeters off and different things like that. You see 90% of the kids, practicing that nonstop, and then those are the kids, that next generation that's going to pour into these trails and make these trail systems bigger. So that's a good point too. Is taking out that 8-year-old, 10-year-old to do a 8-mile loop at state game area, he's gonna hate dad by the time he gets back.
Right.
Versus maybe hitting the pump track and doing a section so I was just thinking that as we're talking about it, those little things are probably important too, like the skill practicing. For the guy who wants to go out of state, should go mess around and do a lap on that, and then for the kid, I think it's good too. So.
Yep. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of kids being attracted to that kind of stuff. As we are seeing more kids ride.
Sure.
You see once what they go in session. And
yeah. They'll for
yeah.
hours. They'll stay on that pump track for hours and never pedal. I don't know how they know.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
so that's kind of the latest. We are hoping to have more information out soon. And how quickly we can build that trail depends on how quickly we can raise the money. Something else I'll dive into with Mosquito Creek. I was blown away by the number of people that contributed to that trail system. And it was from all over the West Michigan region.
Okay.
It was so cool. So number one, thank you to the community for adding to this community. But we also had some pretty significant donors. And those are the folks that we're going to try and find here in the next little bit. So we, kind of big rocks in getting this asset put into the community, getting some core pieces that we can really build around.
Sure.
And so we'll have more information. I think we've got a meeting coming up. We've been trying to get together every other Monday. In fact, my phone is buzzing, and I may actually be missing one of those meetings.
Hopefully not.
But finalizing a package that will have all this information in PDF paper format.
Yep.
That we can start circulating. Again, going back to some of the folks that we had talked to earlier this spring.
Sure.
But also, in these businesses, or these trails don't get built without a number of businesses getting behind it.
Absolutely.
So,
and I know for a fact that, and we're getting near the end of the video, so I hope people are still watching it. And otherwise, we're still going to talk about it, and we'll help you guys get the word out there. But there's a ton, and that's what's kind of cool too about our sport, is there is a ton of business owners, successful people, that are so passionate about it that they would donate, they would participate, they would do, volunteer either labor or funds. So we'll help you get that word out there,
I appreciate that.
And make sure like that, because like I say, I can think of 5 people right now on my cycling team that would probably absolutely, for the next generation, pitch in, donate, whatever. So,
well, I'm going to take this full circle, and I'm going to go back to our first conversation talking about the wellness program that my employer put in place that changed my health destiny.
Right.
Yeah. Outside of, having a lot of fun and racing and getting faster and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the losing weight was never an appearance thing for me. That's like, my wife loves me. I'm very gracious for that, but it's not like the thing that matters. It's living a healthy lifestyle. But small things that I've noted since I've become healthier, not being sick as often.
Right.
Having more energy.
And more energy is a huge one. Yeah.
You'll learn when you push yourself. I've always said the things I learn about myself on the bike, I learn about myself in life. And so realizing that when you push yourself because you've got this, fun hobby objective, and realizing, well, if you actually try and apply that towards, for me, it's my marriage, and for my kids, being a dad, or for work, learning new things.
Exactly.
It makes me a better employee.
Absolutely.
And I know that there are a whole bunch of organizations that are really trying to hone in on that health and wellness of their employees. And with mountain biking developing into a much bigger sport, but having been a small sport to begin with, it hasn't had the attention of a lot of municipalities and communities for parks.
Right.
So we've had to help get these things done by self-funding them.
You're right.
But the potential that's there with these trails is so huge, and it makes such a big impact that it's worthwhile investing into.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can vouch exactly on that, for the mental wellness, the health, all the healthy, and then you do parallel that in the rest of your, life as well. And like we were saying too, a little bit about the kids, if the kids who aren't going to play basketball, or they're not going to, I played all the ball sports, and whatnot, and had a blast, enjoyed it. Wish I would have known about something like this.
Yeah.
I grew up on the other side of the state, it's flat, but, the Norte, up north, I do some with the Dirt Dogs here, and Velo does an amazing job with the kids. And so these little outlets for kids to find a passion in, in a team sport, basketball, baseball, all of those, versus an individual sport that you can push yourself. And that was a success, even though it wouldn't have looked like it on a team sport. But that was still a success, and just I think those outlets are going to be like I say, the Coyotes, the Coyote group, and kudos to all those guys doing that. And if we can have trails, enough trails to where these people just keep growing the sport, it's an amazing thing to watch, from the outside, and then to be on a little bit of the inside, and even be encouraged to get more involved on the inside to what we're doing here. It's pretty cool to be a part of, for sure.
It's a cool time to be a part of mountain biking.
It is,
for sure.
It is. Lastly, we'll wrap up with this. I rode a trail with you this past Saturday. Didn't even know it was there. And
at Beechwood Church? Yeah, we were approached by the youth pastor at Beechwood Church, which is on the north side of Holland, last winter, about building a trail. And in conversations with them, that is, a lot of the properties that we were working with are somehow municipally owned, publicly owned. This is a privately owned parcel of property. When we're taking a look at that, if the private owner wants to pay for a professionally built trail and can come up with the money, that's great.
Okay, yeah.
But with public lands, it tends to be harder, to shift uses. So it makes it a little easier to go and raise outside funds for those.
Right.
They were like, hey, we just want to build a fun trail to get people on the property and utilize this ridge.
It is cool.
This ridge line that we've got, and so
a little punchy.
Yeah. So Jeff Cobb and Brian Stauffer have been out there quite a bit. I've tried joining them as much as I can with laying it out and kind of getting it rough cut. We've got a little over 1.25 miles that's done, and we've had a couple of trail days with volunteers that have come out. We had Herman Miller come out a couple of weeks ago and actually help finish off kind of the last little section, that field section that we went through.
The field section, yes.
It's kind of like this, almost looked like a swamp.
Yeah, yes.
It was in the middle of one of those.
Fun downhill, and then you were in, okay.
Yep. They came in and helped finish that off, and then the couple of little trails that we have going up into the ridge line.
That's fun.
And now we are heading west, and the beautiful part of the property is yet to come.
Okay.
And so we're working on getting that designed, laid out.
Open to the public? How does something like that work on private property?
So we had a conversation with, parking and how they would, like that to happen. We will eventually have all of the formal trail markings.
Okay.
We're kind of working on that process as well. Have maybe a kiosk that kind of has the map layout,
Sure.
and that will be in their parking lot.
Okay.
They are happy to have people park in their parking lot.
Nice.
It's a very large parking lot.
It is, yeah.
And outside of a couple of times a week where they've got a lot of people there, it's going to be an open parking lot. So
I felt. Did they have a Saturday? Did they have church going on that Saturday when we were there?
They had something. That's not, it's a Sunday worshiping community, so I don't know if they would have had church, but it was something.
I'm like, am I supposed to be in church right now? It's Saturday.
I'll tell you what, that was the coolest thing. I know the youth pastor would have been like, "See, this is why we built this."
Right. Yeah, it was cool. It's 1.5 miles from the beach. 2 miles. How far?
Yeah. So it's from the beach. It's probably close to 3 miles because I think it's about a 15-minute easy ride.
Okay. And then could you where I didn't have my bearings on where Riley was from there.
Riley, it's 1.5 miles.
Okay, that's maybe what I was thinking.
Because where we parked and started that ride to Beechwood Church is 1.1 miles exactly.
Okay. And those little trails that we hit in between, those are public county style walking trails?
One of them was Park Township property that also is a part of a master planning process, involved in a master planning process right now.
Okay.
The old airport is they're doing their development work.
Okay.
That'll probably complete at some point in 2022.
Okay.
Then the woods that we went through is a park or a natural area that Park Township owns, and we've been talking with them about putting in a skills park there as well.
Okay.
And that did get, with their master planning process, approved for mountain biking.
Nice.
So it's allowed on the property.
Sure.
So riding on that is acceptable.
It was cool.
During the day, I'll say if you're familiar with the property, stay on the property. Don't go into there's a school on the north side of that.
Okay.
Stay off the school property, please.
Gotcha.
Eventually, I've got some ideas around how we have that fully contained.
Okay.
So that's in now. But one of the attributes will be that the school's right there. That kids will be able to get in there. But
yeah, that ride was fun. That was the Global Fat Day. I never get it right. Global Fat Bike Day ride. So you guys put that on. Velo, I think, is a part of that, and I've hit 2 or 3 of them now, and that's a really good ride. Try hitting that.
The beach is incredible. The last couple of years have been really tough to ride the beach because the water's been so high.
Yeah.
This year, from Tunnel Park to the state park, Holland State Park, is totally rideable. Mm-hmm. You can actually get a little bit further north, Tunnel Park.
Okay.
But I was telling some friends that I've had the last couple of years have been really hard motivating myself to put on all the gear and go outside when I can't get on the beach, because that's frankly the most exciting thing in the winter is to ride the beach.
Man. I look back at some of my video, and when I had the rear camera going and the sun was back this way, I could just sit there and have that as a screensaver. I mean, it just looked so, so beautiful. So for the fact that we get to ride out there, I don't want to take that for granted compared to, people who in the middle of the state or, different areas. That is beautiful. It would have been nice if it was frozen.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I had a little too much air pressure, and I was putting some watts just going 10 miles an hour. Yep.
Yeah, and it was a tricky day with the wind and the waves and all that
I was thinking that when we got about 3/4 of the way down, I'm like, we're heading back into the north wind, but then I was glad when we went.
Yeah.
So, well, Joe, appreciate it big time. We're going to keep in touch. We're going to keep in touch with opportunities for donating to the new trail, trail days. We're going to make sure the community knows what's going on and touch back base and watch for opportunities to donate. Watch for opportunities to donate even just time and effort out there to kind of help build these trails. As you get more involved in mountain biking, you realize it is just a big volunteer network. So the more you're in touch with that and helping out, the better trails we have and the more fun we all have. So appreciate it again, and keep kicking butt. One of these Wednesdays, I'm gonna show up in the parking lot and say hi, and then see you guys.
Come on out anytime.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thanks again.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.